Hey guys, I'm doing a 15-minute game against a player rated 1035, and I'm going to try something different. Okay, I'm gonna play the Caro Kann defense, which I think it's a Caro Kann. I hope it is. Let me check. Yeah, okay, there we go. I've never played this in my entire life, so the point of this is that I'm going to try and rely on good principles. So we've got e4, c6 and d5, and the idea is that obviously if white captures on d5, then I can recapture with my c pawn. So I still have two central pawns and white only has, the one there. Okay, so there could be a slight advantage there for black. One weakness now I notice is that this diagonal to the king is open, so I'm thinking that knight to c6 makes sense. The bishop can come out and pin it, but it can't come out and check. I can always break the check. I'd imagine that my other knight's going to come out shortly. Okay, white's now played this. One of the most important questions to ask is, why did my opponent play that move? And I think a clear reason is to be able to castle. I don't think it's the best move, because it's going to be in the way of the rook. If the rook wants to come to the e-file, then it's also in the way of the queen, and it's also blocked by its own knight. So I think that bishop to b5 would have been much better. Okay, I'm just going to carry on with normal development. So we're looking here at fundamental principles. We're looking for tactics, and also for following the checklist. That if you've seen my previous video, it's a longer video, 80 minutes. I go through this checklist. What just happened? Why did they do that? What's now changed on the board in terms of what's undefended, underdefended, or en prise? I said en prise earlier on. I've been corrected by a follower. I shouldn't be getting French wrong. Okay, so my knights are out in the board. It's time to look at these bishops. Now, the light square bishop can come out. That it's got a couple of decent squares. These two squares look good. I think maybe get my light squared bishop out and then think about my dark squared bishop. So then I can move e6. Then get my dark squared bishop out to one of these squares probably. And then I'm going to think about castling. So I think my next move will probably be e6. This is a shorter game, being 15 minutes, so I'm not going to go through that whole checklist, because I would certainly lose on time if I did that. But I'm going through those ideas in my head. I am a little more used to asking myself those questions. Although I think if you've seen that video, okay, that's an interesting one. So he's done a similar kind of thing. He's pushed this pawn forward. I didn't really ask myself the question, but then, so if he takes, I'll probably take back with, I've got options. I've got queen, I've got knight. I'm just going to put my bishop here. One thing I've got to be careful of is if I do put the bishop there, is he going to push and maybe trap the bishop? I can always come back. I've got a route to safety, so I think that's okay. So if he captures, I've got pawn, I've got queen, or I've got knight that can recapture. Let's just start thinking about which is the best option. Anything I recapture with is going to be defended by this pawn. Moving this knight would give my queen some scope, but then these two squares are already covered by the knight. So maybe bringing the queen out would be the best idea to here. It's a light square. That bishop's not going to trouble it soon. Okay, so we have this idea. Can't move to there because of the knight. I can either move back and probably invite another pawn push, or I can move straight back to here. Let's go straight back to here. I think if he pushes c5, that would be fine. I'll just drop the bishop back. So I'm kind of tempting him to push push that now rather than exchange in the middle, because then I'll lose my 2-pawn dominance in the centre of the board. Cool, that's fine. Happy with that. And put my bishop there where it's looking down at the h2 pawn, which could be a target maybe for my queen, maybe for a rook. So I'm even thinking now that I might shift the queen, maybe castle queenside, and then maybe think about pawn storm ideas of the king side. Everyone loves a good pawn storm. Okay, I'm going to put my queen here. Put it there so it's just one more defender on that knight. This knight seems okay. They're both already defended by pawns, so it doesn't really matter. I think my opponent's playing decent move so far. Okay, knight to there. He's attacking the bishop. He's also attacking this pawn, but the pawn is defended by a knight. The bishop is defended by a queen. So is his intention simply to exchange? And should I allow it? Don't think there's much I can do about it, really. But it is a good bishop. I could protect it by bringing it back to b8. That does trap in my rook, but maybe I can just chase the knight away. If the knight goes here, I can capture, pawn captures, queen captures, I win a pawn. And that leaves this pawn isolated in the middle of the board. So I'm alright with that. You know, I've still got options. I've kept my options open for castling. Didn't have to do it as quickly as white did it, or as early as white did it. Okay, not sure of the point of that move. This is a6 is a freebie. It's really cost me nothing. I can still castle kingside. So he can't go there. He can't go there. That's a possibility. This one. Where do we get orange? Can I get orange? No. Oh, well, it's a possibility. And these two are okay here. Both down to 11 minutes. Okay, the knight's retreated. He's relinquished his intentions. Alright, so now it's time to think about storming the castle. I'm going to move my bishop back to here. Now the knight can't come in again, you see, because this pawn is going to remain there. So it's taken away the b5 square. The knight can't come back in. Yeah, I thought there might be ideas of pushing down with pawns, maybe. That bishop's just looking at its own pawn. I'm just going to ignore that, and I'm going to concentrate on my own plans. I think queen down to b8 might be an idea at some point. If I castle first, put my king in the corner, bring my rook across. Let's castle. Do I have to worry about this pawn coming through, this backwards pawn? Yeah, maybe we don't want that. I'm just going to... No, I'm not going to push that. Okay, I'm going to push my kingside pawns and start my pawn storm. This dark squared bishop is lovely right now. It's got a beautiful diagonal down to h2. This bishop isn't doing bad. It's not in the way of the g and h pawns. So I think... okay. Now this is my least effective bishop, and this is his defensive knight. You see, it's come from that square. Very important square. So I think I'm quite happy if he wants to go swapping them off. Just need to check. So if I attack the knight, knight captures, pawn captures, I've got my king and my queen on a completely open file, so then I need to... It's going to take him 2 moves to attack it with a rook, because he's got to move the bishop out of the way, so I've got time to castle, and then move my queen, so let's go for that idea. I'm going to pre-move that, so I've already done my thinking, I don't need to do it again. I'm expecting the rook to come across to e1, at which point I'm going to castle queenside, bring my rook to d8, and the good thing about this is that my king's going to be here, my rook's going to be here, my bishop can still drop back to b8 if it wants to. I'm going to go and do that anyway. Bishop back to b8, queen across, and then launch a long-range tactical attack. Okay, I am 1, 2, 3 moves away from mate. So I think at this point I ought to be thinking about some defense. Okay, so now if pawn takes, I'm going to recapture with a knight. Knight there will be controlling some potentially useful squares. There's also this threat of c6 with a discovered attack on my queen. If that happens, my queen's going to move, can't go to there, fc6, so these squares are out. Queen's going to have to retreat, move across in line with the king. I'll move it to the g file. We're down to 920, all of us. Okay, so that pawn has pushed, which is annoying, because it's kicking this bishop off. Bishop's going to have to go there. It is. Now he's got another pawn push, which will mean queen dropping back to e8 if c6. Can't capture the bishop because it's defended by the rook. I would love now to play knight back to c6, stopping this pawn's advance. If I get the chance to do that, I'll be a happy man. Okay, didn't get the chance to do it. I'm going to have to retreat. Now, what I don't want to do... Okay, good move, because now what's coming next is c7, and that's going to win my knight, which isn't necessarily the end of the world, unless I capture with the bishop. That'd be trading a bishop for 2 pawns. But first of all, I've got to do something with the queen. My concern is if I drop the queen back to e8 and then c7's pushed, does that cause problems for my rook? My rook can push forwards, or do I just drop my queen, put my queen forwards slightly? I don't want to take the bishop, that just doesn't make any sense. I think this is okay. That will come, push the rook, pawn takes knight, king takes queen. Good play by my opponent. Okay, push the rook, king takes queen, pre-move it. Playing very well for a 1000 rating. Notice this bishop here is only defended by 1 piece, which is the 2 pieces, queen and knight. In fact, if pawn takes, I've got bishop takes, which could be sneaky. Is my bishop back out of sight? Now if I can get my queen back onto this diagonal, but she can't go there or there or there. That's the problem. So I'm going to have to come up with something dirty. So I'm down the exchange, basically. I've lost a... no, I'm not. I'm down 2 pawns, so I've lost a bishop in return for an advantage of 1 pawn. Okay, what's the purpose of this move? Could come to there with check. That would be awkward, because I can't. If knight comes there, I can't capture with a bishop, because then pawn goes to there, a7, and the king can't go to b8 because it's trapped. So there's no way of preventing queening. So I cannot capture the knight if it comes in. So I'm going to have to move the knight. So knight can come in. So I'm going to have to move the king. Yeah, it'll be king d8 basically. So on a dark square, that pawn's actually then helping me that point. So let's not worry about that side of the board. Let's push a pawn forward. I'm going to take a square away from the bishop at the very least. Bishop now can't go there or there. Bishop's only got one square to go to. No bad thing. Maybe my knight could come in. That's not a bad square for the knight. I'd love to get my queen also onto this diagonal, but I don't see how I'm going to do it. Maybe somehow queen to h5 and attack from that way. But that means getting this pawn out of the way. So maybe knight to here, push the pawn, queen to there, checkmate threat. If pawn pushes I can't capture because then bishop takes queen. Alright. What's this queen's plan? I've got to check there. My king's now on a completely open file. I think I'm going to go running. I'm going to run away with my king. But I can't come to here or here because of the bishop. Wow, it's got me in knots. Absolute knots. Can't go to this square because it's covered by the knight and the bishop. Knight e4 is an idea. It kicks the queen, takes this square away from the queen. That's a possibility. So I want to keep aggressive play. My opponent's also playing very kind of consistently in terms of time. We haven't had any really quick moves, so it does make you wonder slightly about whether an engine could possibly be being used. I don't like to accuse anybody of that kind of thing. But he's playing surprisingly well, I have to say. So I could push forward there. Could push this pawn. Let's just keep pushing this pawn up. What's the knight? The knight's not threatening that pawn. It's not really threatening to come here or here. So I think I'm alright. Oh yeah, the knight was actually under attack in that position. Silly me. That's what the checklist is for, isn't it, guys? Could have just taken the knight. Ridiculous. Okay, so there's definitely a risk now of the bishop moving out of the way. I'm just going to move my queen. I'm going to move it to there. I don't want a discovered attack by the rook on my queen. That would win another exchange. Not having that. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm not concerned about that move. I'm just going to keep up my pressure on the king side now. Give my opponent less time to think. I don't want to be swapping off material when I'm a piece down, but I don't mind sacrificing some pawns. Okay, so the knight's manoeuvring round again. Where does it want to go? Does it want to go back in there? Not really. Goes back in there, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to ignore it. I could capture, pawn captures, rook captures. Right, if I push this pawn, it's going to have to do something. He can't push both of these. See, if I pushed the H pawn, he could have just pushed the G and we'd have been locked out. But this way, he's going to be forced to, there will be a capture, because even if he pushes one pawn I can capture the other one with check. So this is what I want to do. I want to break through now. So this player 10.35 at rapid and 7.40 at blitz. Okay, he can't take that, he can't take that. Right, I'm going to capture here. This is going to force the king to recapture, because otherwise I take the rook. Okay. Now, okay. So what I'm going to do: bishop takes, knight e4 with a fork. What he should not recapture now. What he should do is spot the threat of the fork and move one of these two pieces. Probably king back to g1 maybe, but then no, that's not attractive because the king goes there. I push a pawn threatening queen takes g2 mate. He'd have to push. Now I can capture with the bishop. Okay. So this is unpleasant. He's in check, so he can't counterattack. He can't check me. Okay, queen falls. Just make sure you don't slip with the old mouse, hunty. Okay. Now, got some options. I've got a check there, or I've got a pawn to capture, or I just grab the bishop. Let's grab the bishop. Right, there's no immediate threats of pins and stuff like that, so that's alright. This pawn's definitely a weakness. So I'm thinking I'm just going to put my queen there. I'm trying to keep my valuable pieces now on dark squares because my opponent has a light squared bishop. And the immediate threat is capturing that pawn. Okay, spotted that. Bring my rook across to pin this bishop against that rook. Either way, I mean, I'm almost a queen up. I'm a queen against the bishop, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so I've got a queen and a pawn against his bishop. So I could very, very happily now, maybe I might even double up my rooks, start to attack here. All looking good. But I'll tell you what, he caused me some proper problems. Okay, bishop has taken a pawn. So I can recapture, then we might have rook takes rook, and that's going to be... Or is he trying to sneak in a promotion here? So maybe I shouldn't recapture immediately. I'm going to grab his rook. King should now recapture. And then I've got options of check and check. I'm going to make life difficult for my opponent now. Is the plan. I'll grab the pawn. He might grab the pawn here, but I think I can now bully him around the board. Okay, that's a check. Can't move here, so he's got to come back to this rank. Okay, and then he's got to go back to the first rank, and it should be checkmate next move. There we go. Okay, resignation. Well done, whoever you are. I'm going to run the analysis on that. Let's look at the game report there. I think his accuracy was surprisingly good for the first 3/4 of that game. I wouldn't be surprised if I was actually behind. Interesting stuff. So generally what I look for when I analyse a game using the engine, there you go, yeah. So no, his accuracy wasn't that amazing. So what I'm looking for particularly, so it's tight, nothing really spectacular here. And then I want to go to this point in the game where he's suddenly got an advantage. So go to analysis. So you can see the bar is equal now, and now it really doesn't like that move. G5 is a mistake. Why is it a mistake? Because knight takes f5. Okay. That is what happened, and now it says that white is much better off. I remember this point in the game in the commentary, so I said I was quite happy for the knight to take that bishop because it wasn't my best bishop. The computer says that the best move was to bring the bishop back to h7. Remember, computers aren't humans. So this does create this issue of the open file, but we calculated that, so that was okay. So I'm not too concerned about that. Any other big moments in here? Yeah, it says my next move also was terrible. Okay, castling was a mistake. I go from 2 pawns down to 5 points down. But I castled for good reason. I castled to get my king off of this open e-file. And it says, computer says I should have, instead of that, I should have put my queen here. But then again, it wanted to sacrifice there. So yeah, interesting game all in all. Sometimes you just have to look at what the computer says and just say, look, I'm not a computer. But yeah, that was definitely interesting. I hope you've got something out of that as well, dear viewer. And I've got a chess lesson coming up actually, which is very exciting. But I'll see you soon.